The mixer's drum turned above me like a gray mouth chewing rocks. I had my sampling bucket under the chute when Caleb slapped it off the tailgate. Concrete paste struck my boots and spread over the red line I had drawn across the batch ticket at 6:42 a.m. "Concrete now, testing can wait," he snapped. I was the independent lab tech assigned to his foundation pour. Caleb was the project director and my older brother. He waved the mixer forward while contractors watched me step aside. What he did not know was that I had already sent one quiet call outside his chain of command. The pump operator lifted his remote. The driver's radio cracked. "Unit 14, quality hold, do not discharge." The driver locked the lever. Then the chute began to swing back. Caleb's raised hand stayed in the air as the truck reversed from the pump. The lab had stopped the pour. He looked at me across the wet stain on my boots. "You've been waiting 6 months to do that." That was the unanswered part. I didn't know whether he meant stop him, embarrass him, or finish the argument we had started beside our father's empty desk. The backup alarm kept beeping. Men in orange vests moved out of the truck's path, pretending to be deeply interested in rebar, hose clamps, anything except us. June heat sat heavy inside the excavation. The reinforcing cage for the compressor foundation rose waist-high around us, a dense black grid over pale forms. Once the pour started, 18 trucks were supposed to arrive at 12-minute intervals. A pump sat primed. 2 finishers had driven in before dawn. A rented light tower was still running even though the sun had cleared the cold storage roof. Caleb lowered his hand. "Tell them to release it." "I can't. You made the call. You can unmake it." The batch times don't match, and the driver confirmed water was added after dispatch. The driver, Leon, stared into his side mirror with the disciplined stillness of a man who regretted having ears. Caleb took the ticket from my hand. His thumb smudged the red grease pencil line without erasing it. "Loaded at 5:58, he said. "On site at 6:31. We're fine." My stopwatch started when it came through the gate at 6:42. "Then your watch is wrong." "It isn't a watch." I opened my palm. The stainless steel stopwatch looked absurdly old beside the tablet clipped to my vest. Its face had a shallow scratch between the 4 and 5. My father had dropped it into a bucket of aggregate during a hospital expansion job and spent an hour screening stone to find it. Caleb glanced at it and then away. "Of course you brought that. I bring it to every placement." Dad's little courtroom exhibit. From the pump, Ray Doherty called, "We're holding a hopper full of primer over here." Caleb turned instantly. "Recirculate it. Keep the boom over the washout." Ray was broad, sunburned, and old enough to know when an order was meant to sound calmer than the person giving it. He rotated the boom away from the forms. That was Caleb at his best. Even angry, he saw the whole job. He knew the rented crane could not set the compressor skids until the foundation reached strength. He knew the refrigeration contractor had a 4-day window before its crew went to another state. He knew Bellwether's old system was limping through summer production on 2 repaired compressors and optimism. He had recovered 19 days on the schedule by resequencing electrical work through the night shift. He also knew concrete could not be bullied back into the truck after it hardened. A white pickup with the Northline Materials logo came down the access road. Denise Carver parked beside the excavation and got out carrying her hard hat. Denise was our technical director, although she looked like an accountant who had taken a wrong turn on the way to lunch. Her safety glasses hung from a beaded cord. She walked directly to Leon. "Did you discharge anything other than the sample that hit Ms. Voss's boots?" Leon looked at Caleb, then at Denise. "No, ma'am." "Was water added?" There was an adjustment. "How much?" "I'd need to check." Caleb handed her the ticket. "The load is within time. Your technician created a hold before performing a single test." My technician called because she wasn't allowed to take a sample. I told her to test after we had concrete moving through the pump. Denise put on her safety glasses. "That isn't how representative sampling works. It works better than losing a load in 90-degree heat while someone measures the weather. Concrete temperature isn't the weather. Ray made a noise that might have been a cough. Caleb looked toward him, and Ray bent over his remote. Denise gave the ticket back to me. Set up. Caleb blocked the folding table with one boot. Not her. Excuse me? You can test it. Send somebody else for the placement. I'm here to observe. Mara is the assigned field technician, and she's my sister. The word traveled farther than his voice. A carpenter standing near the forms turned before he could stop himself. Denise's face remained polite. She was assigned from rotation. She worked for Voss Industrial until I terminated her. You didn't terminate me, I said. I resigned. After I removed you from the project. You removed my badge during a safety meeting. Because you refused a direct instruction. To sign a report I hadn't reviewed. Caleb's jaw tightened. There it was. The family argument dressed in hard hats and reflective tape, standing in front of 30 people who had heard partial versions for months. Denise moved his boot off the table leg with the toe of hers and opened the table. Today she works for Northline, she said. The owner retained Northline for acceptance testing. If you want to challenge her assignment, put it in writing. I will. I assumed you might. That almost made me smile. Almost. We drew a sample into the wheelbarrow under Denise's observation. Leon discharged enough concrete to clear the first watery portion, then stopped when she signaled. I dampened the slump cone, placed it on the base, and filled it in 3 lifts, rodding each layer 25 times. Caleb stood close enough for his shadow to cross my hands. When I lifted the cone, the concrete settled wide and loose. 8 1/4, I said. Pump mix, Caleb answered. Approved maximum is 5 without documented high-range reducer. It has reducer. I looked at the ticket. Not on this batch. It's in the design. Then the batch ticket should show the dose. Denise crouched beside the air meter while I took the concrete temperature. 92, I said. The project specification capped placement temperature at 90. Caleb gave a short laugh. 2 degrees. Denise fitted the lid to the air pot. Stand clear. She pressurized the chamber, tapped the gauge, and released the valve. The needle settled. 2.9%. The approved range began at 5. Nobody said anything for a moment. The drum turned. Wet concrete whispered over the fins inside. Caleb crouched and pressed 2 fingers into the sample, as though he might diagnose it by touch. We can dose air at the site. Not without the producer's quality representative and a documented procedure, Denise said. Call him. He's already coming. Caleb stood. By the time he gets here, this load is dead. That may already be true. He looked at me. You enjoy saying that? I didn't say it. You called the person who did. Denise straightened. Mr. Voss, your next trucks are held at the plant. We'll confirm the approved mixture, check the water record, and decide whether this load can be corrected. He stared at her, recalculating. His anger did not disappear. It became useful. Fine, he said. We'll document that Northline stopped a critical placement because its technician arrived late, used a personal timing device instead of the project log, and failed to disclose an immediate family conflict. I disclosed it when I was hired, I said. To your employer, not to me, not to Bellwether. You knew I worked for Northline. I didn't know they'd send you onto my site. Neither did I until last night. His eyes shifted. Just once toward the temporary project trailer above the excavation. Who gave you the assignment? Dispatch. Who requested Northline instead of the lab we used on Phase 1? Bellwether did. That answer bothered him more than the failed air test. He walked away, calling for his superintendent before he reached the stairs. Within 2 minutes, crews were stripping protective plastic from a secondary equipment pad at the east end of the building. Caleb had found work for the finishers and a possible use for later trucks if the mix could be redirected. Men moved because he gave them something specific to do. That was how he had always won arguments, by becoming the only person still offering motion. Denise watched him go. You didn't mention the badge, she said quietly. It wasn't relevant to my qualifications. It's relevant now. You said the assignment was random. It was. That doesn't make this simple. The producer's quality manager arrived 25 minutes later. He checked the electronic batch record inside his truck, spoke privately with Leon, and rejected the load. The drum still contained 9 cubic yards. It left for the plant's disposal area with the chute folded tight against its rear. The remaining trucks were released only after the plant confirmed the mix settings and replaced a malfunctioning air admixture pump. By then, the sun was high. The concrete pump had to be cleaned and reprised, and the refrigeration crew's embedded plate inspector had left for another job. Caleb redirected 2 trucks to the secondary pad and postponed the compressor foundation until the next morning. He saved what he could. He always did. At 9:30, Bellwether's project executive summoned Denise and me to the trailer. Elaine Porter sat at the end of a folding table with a stainless travel mug and 3 phones lined up beside it. She wore a white blouse under her safety vest without a spot of dust on either. Caleb had cleaned the concrete from the batch ticket but left my red line visible. "I have 2 accounts of this morning," Elaine said. "Both are concerning." Caleb sat across from me. He had changed his vest. His new one still had the packaging crease down the back. "My concern is straightforward," he said. An estranged former employee with a personal grievance was placed in control of a time-sensitive operation without disclosure. "Estranged?" I said. Elaine lifted one finger, not sternly, economically. "Ms. Voss, did you tell Bellwether you were related to the project director?" "I didn't have direct contact with Bellwether before the assignment." "Did Northline?" Denise answered. "Our conflict form lists her prior employment and family relationship. The contract administrator received our personnel certifications." Caleb slid a printed email across the table. The message had been sent at 5:11 that morning from someone in Northline Dispatch to Voss Industrial's general inbox. It listed me as the assigned technician. "You had 90 minutes notice," he said. "Nobody raised the conflict." "I was driving here," I said. "You live 40 minutes away." I stopped at the lab for the equipment. Dad's stopwatch is Northline equipment now. Elaine's eyes went to my hand. I had been holding it under the table without realizing. I set it beside the batch ticket. "It backs up the electronic log. The gate scan shows the truck arriving at 6:42. Caleb turned his laptop toward Elaine. His site log showed 6:31. "There was no functioning gate scan until yesterday," he said. "Security has been entering times in batches. Mara knows that because she managed the Phase 1 quality plan. I also know the Southgate camera timestamps each vehicle. The camera is 11 minutes fast. Exactly 11? You can ask security." "I will." He leaned back. "That's my point. She came looking for discrepancies. I came looking for concrete." Elaine took a drink from her mug. "And you found a load that failed 3 field checks." "A load she delayed before testing," Caleb said. "We don't know what it would have shown at the proper sampling time." Denise's chair creaked. "Concrete does not lose 3% air because a technician makes a phone call." "I'm not disputing the reading. I'm disputing the process and the person. It was a smart division. He let the bad load belong to the producer while making the disruption belong to me." Elaine folded the email once, precisely. "Northline will assign another technician tomorrow." Denise looked at her. "Elaine, for continuity, I want the rejected load report by end of day, including raw readings, photographs, timing sources, and chain of custody. Ms. Voss will not return to Bellwether pending review." Caleb did not smile. That made it worse. Outside the trailer, Denise walked with me to my truck. Gravel snapped under our boots. "I'll fight the word pending," she said. "But you're off this site." "Am I off other sites?" "Until I speak with Accreditation Council, you're on internal duty." Internal duty meant no field differential, no mileage, and no weekend overtime. I had built my budget around all 3. For how long? "I don't know." "You watched him knock the bucket out of my hand." "I did." You watched the load fail. I did. And I'm the one going home. You're the one he can turn into a process problem. Denise took off her safety glasses. Without them, she looked tired. Mara, being right does not make you hard to attack. My phone buzzed as she walked away. Dana's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring out. Then a text arrived. What did you do to him? I sat on my tailgate and opened the batch ticket. The red grease pencil line crossed the printed loading time. Beneath it, almost hidden by Caleb's thumbprint, was a second number in Leon's handwriting, 629, followed by a small W and a figure that had been overwritten. 25 gallons. I clicked the stopwatch once and listened to it begin counting again. The stopwatch reached 43 seconds before I shut it off. Dana called again. I answered. I rejected a concrete load. You stopped the entire pour. The rest of the mix was held until the batch plant checked its equipment. I'm standing beside 3 finishers who are billing us for today and tomorrow. Then you already know more than I do. Caleb said you walked onto his site carrying Dad's stopwatch and picked a fight. Caleb knocked my bucket out of my hand. Silence moved through the line. Somewhere near Dana, a printer started and stopped. He didn't mention that, she said. He probably called it an adjustment. Mara, what? Don't do that thing where every word he uses becomes evidence. I looked down at the ticket. Leon wrote 25 gallons beside the watermark. Who's Leon? The driver. Then put it in your report. I'm going to. And stick to the report, please. She ended the call before I could ask whether she had called to check on me or contain me. At Northline, the concrete cylinder room smelled of damp burlap and lime. 6 black plastic molds from the rejected load sat in a curing box, their lids labeled with my initials, the truck number, and 7:18 a.m. Denise had watched me fill them after the failed field tests. Caleb could dispute my timing, my assignment, and possibly my personality. But each cylinder had been made in 2 equal lifts, rodded, tapped, capped, and logged, with Denise standing 3 feet away. I changed out of my stiffening boots and carried the field file into the workroom. Jamal Price was using the break room microwave to heat fish in a container that looked old enough to have survived military service. Denise stopped in the doorway. Again? The vent works. The vent moves it into my office. That sounds like an HVAC defect. You're a concrete technician. I contain multitudes. Jamal glanced at my socks. Gray paste had soaked through one toe. Bad morning? I made a new friend. Did the friend drive a mixer? My brother. He lowered his fork. That sounds worse. Denise handed me a blank incident form. Conference room, scan everything first. I photographed both sides of the ticket, including the overwritten water figure. The front carried the producer's printed load time, mix number, quantities, and admixture codes. The back had Leon's signature, my readings, Denise's witness initials, and the small handwritten W. Caleb's thumb had left a dusty oval near the edge. The electronic upload from my tablet contained 7 photographs: slump measurement, air meter gauge, thermometer, cylinder labels, general placement area, the rejected ticket. The mixer back near the pump. I enlarged the last image. The truck's water tank sat behind Leon's cab. A narrow mechanical counter was mounted beside the valve. The digits were visible but blurred by distance. Jamal. He came in carrying the fish container. You need my eyes or my nose? Eyes. What number is that? He leaned toward the monitor. 1270-something. Can you sharpen it? In real life or the television version where I pound the keyboard and discover a license plate reflected in an eyeball? Real life. Then no. You can enlarge blur until it becomes larger blur. He set down his lunch and opened the image properties. Original resolution's better than the preview, 1275 maybe. If the plant recorded the meter before dispatch, we could calculate the field edition. Assuming that counter works, and assuming the driver reported the starting number, and assuming nobody filled the truck's drinking water tank or whatever that thing is, it's not for drinking. I had reached that conclusion. Denise appeared behind us. Do not perform an investigation from the conference room computer. We're reviewing a field photograph, I said. You are documenting your own conduct. Northline will request the producer's records. Caleb will request them, too. Then they'd better be accurate. She held out her hand for the ticket. I gave her the photocopy and kept the original in the file sleeve. No, she said. Original goes in QA custody. It's my field book. It's project evidence now. That word made my stomach pull tight. I handed it over. Denise sealed the ticket in a clear envelope signed across the flap and locked it in the cabinet where Northline kept disputed reports. I had watched her do the same thing with fractured cylinders, calibration records, and one drill core a contractor claimed had been switched. It was a routine designed to remove trust from the equation. Usually I liked it. By noon, Caleb's complaint occupied 4 pages. He did not accuse me of inventing results. He wrote that I had arrived 11 minutes late according to the site log, failed to immediately stage my equipment, interfered with placement before obtaining a representative sample, and escalated outside the project communication plan. He described the bucket incident as an accidental contact caused by congestion at the discharge area. Attached to the complaint was a security video with no sound. It began with me standing beside the mixer, one hand at my ear. The bucket was already on the ground. Concrete covered my boots. Caleb pointed toward the testing table, and I stepped away. 32 seconds later, the truck reversed. A person who had not been there could watch it and believe I had made the call first. He clipped it, I said. Denise paused the video. We don't know that. The camera records continuously. We'll request the full sequence. He knows the slap is missing. We'll request the full sequence. I pushed back from the table. You keep saying that like requests are self-executing, and you keep talking like anger is a chain of custody procedure. The words landed because they were clean. Denise closed the laptop. Go calibrate the thermometers. There are 12. Then your afternoon has structure. Internal duty usually meant helping prepare equipment, checking air meter seals, weighing scales against certified masses, replacing cracked strike-off bars, cleaning concrete from things field technicians had promised they would clean themselves. It was useful work. It also paid $4 less an hour and ended at 4:30. I lined up the digital thermometers beside the reference unit in a stirred water bath. At 30-second intervals, I recorded each reading. The stainless stopwatch lay beside the sheet. When I was 10, our father had not put it in my hand and delivered some perfect lesson. He had been a distracted man with a talent for concrete and no respect for restaurant reservations. I first used the stopwatch years later when I worked for him and Caleb because Dad had gone to answer a call and told me to time an air test. He came back 7 minutes later holding a gas station sandwich and asked why I looked offended. Because you left. But did you get the reading? Yes. Then I left the right person. For years, I had treated that as praise. After he died, Caleb said it had been Dad's favorite way of making abandonment sound like confidence. At 4:20, Jamal rolled a cart of cleaned slump cones into storage. You're released into society, he said. I have 9 minutes. Use them to plan a crime. I'm under investigation. Then plan a very small crime. Denise came through the lab carrying a test request. Jamal, you're at Bellwether tomorrow, 4:30 start. His humor vanished. For the Compressor Foundation? 3 placements, West Block, Center Block, East Block. I took the paper from her before she could stop me. The original foundation was a single monolithic mass. The revised request listed 3 separate placements of 22 cubic yards each, with construction joints at 2 reinforcing grids. Each section fell below the project's threshold for continuous lab attendance. The notes required 1 test set per 50 cubic yards, minimum 1 set per day. They're dividing the poor, I said. They issued a revised placement plan, Denise answered. Approved by whom? There's an RFI number. No response attached. Elaine says the structural engineer approved it verbally pending paperwork. Caleb complained that I ignored the communication plan, and now he's building from a verbal approval. Jamal read over my shoulder. I can make 3 sets. Not if Voss releases you after the first one. I don't work for Voss. They control site access and placement notices. Denise took back the request. You are not assigned. I know. You won't contact the owner, the engineer, the producer, or anyone at Bellwether. I know. You especially won't contact your sister. That wasn't on my list. It's on mine. I gathered my notebook and the stopwatch. Make sure Jamal sees the batch ticket before every truck discharges. He knows how to do his job. Jamal lifted both hands. I'm right here, and I do. In the parking lot, I found Dana leaning against my car. She had changed out of her office shoes into white sneakers, but still wore black slacks and a fitted jacket. A paper bag sat on the hood between us. I brought you a sandwich, she said. Is this an ambush with mayonnaise? Turkey. No mayonnaise. Then it's just an ambush. She handed me the bag. I was hungry enough to open it. Dana watched me take a bite. Caleb's moving the pour to tomorrow morning, I heard. The engineer agreed to joints. Verbally. He's sending the detail tonight. Caleb already scheduled trucks. That's how construction works. That's how Caleb works. He turns every decision into a train that's already moving, so saying no feels like causing a wreck. She rubbed a spot on the hood with her thumb. Do you practice these lines? Only in the shower. Lucky shower. I folded the sandwich wrapper around the uneaten half. Dana and I had the same dark hair and the same narrow hands. On her, those hands always looked composed. Even when our father was in hospice, she could align pill bottles in a row and make chaos look scheduled. Why are you really here? I asked. Your lab sent a records request, batch documentation, site video, daily logs, personnel correspondence. That's normal. They asked for every email containing your name. That's also normal now. Caleb thinks you engineered this. I didn't select the truck. I didn't break the admixture pump. I didn't add water. You did call your boss before you tested. After he knocked away the sample. The video doesn't show that. Because he clipped it. Her eyes shifted to the lab entrance. The camera wasn't active before 6:38. It was active when the truck arrived. The security company was resetting the clock. The timestamps aren't reliable. Who told you? I reviewed the invoice. Of course she had. Dana did not argue from impressions. She brought invoices. Then give Northline the original video file. Caleb has to authorize external release. You're the controller. I don't control project records. You control everything when he needs you to. The sentence changed her face. She took the sandwich bag back, though I was still holding it. The paper tore between us. We missed a lender draw last month, she said. The project has to hit the equipment foundation milestone before they release it. That's not Bellwether's concrete problem. It's payroll's problem. So that's what this is. This is a company with 41 people waiting to be paid Friday. And Caleb decided those people needed me to sign reports I hadn't reviewed 6 months ago? This is bigger than that meeting. He made it bigger, in front of everyone. He removed you because you were stopping work on 3 projects. I was auditing 3 projects. You were sleeping 4 hours a night and rewriting reports at 2 in the morning. I stared at her. Dana softened, which was more dangerous than when she sharpened. Dad had been dead 9 weeks. You were carrying his stopwatch around and treating every discrepancy like somebody had killed him twice. Caleb wanted my signature. He wanted a functioning company. He wanted my signature because lenders trusted it. And you wanted him to admit Dad should have left quality control to you. There it was, laid neatly between the torn halves of a sandwich bag. I unlocked my car. Dana stepped away from the door. Give Northline a statement that the stop could have been handled differently. Caleb will withdraw the complaint. He can withdraw it now. He won't. Then I won't. You'll lose field work. For a while. You can't afford that. I looked at her. Did you check my mortgage too? No, I know what Northline pays. Because Caleb checked. Because I do payroll for people with the same certifications. I got into the car and placed the stopwatch in the cup holder. Dana bent toward the open window. He isn't trying to pour bad concrete, Mara. He's trying to keep the company alive. Those can be true at the same time. She stood there while I backed out. The next morning, I was halfway through checking an air meter in Northline's yard when Jamal sent Denise a photograph from Bellwether. She opened it on her tablet and said nothing. I saw the mixer behind him, the 3 new timber bulkheads inside the reinforcing cage, and Caleb's white hard hat at the edge of the frame. On the truck's rear platform, the auxiliary water counter read 1300. I opened my photograph from the day before, 1275. Same truck, same counter, exactly 25 gallons apart. Then Denise's office phone rang. She listened, thanked the caller, and set the receiver down. Caleb says the handwritten water entry appeared after he gave the ticket back to you. I looked through the glass wall at the locked QA cabinet. The original ticket sat inside its sealed envelope, my red line crossing the print, and Leon's overwritten number beneath Caleb's dusty thumbprint. He had stopped defending the concrete. Now he was accusing me of changing the record. Denise came out of her office and closed the door behind her. Don't touch the cabinet. I wasn't going to. You were looking at it like you might. The ticket was in my possession after he handed it back. That's his argument. And I watched you write the water entry. No, you watched me write the test results. Leon wrote the water entry before you arrived. She considered that. Did you see him write it? I saw him take the pencil. Did you see the number appear? I was setting up the air meter. Denise pressed 2 fingers against the bridge of her nose. This is why observation notes use subjects and verbs. Jamal's picture remained open on her tablet. I pointed to the counter. The producer's dispatch record should include the meter reading when the truck left the plant. We requested it. If it says 1250, then we have a useful record. Until it arrives, we have a fuzzy photograph and a theory. Her phone buzzed with a message. She read it and looked through the glass toward the yard. Jamal says they're placing the west block. Did he test before discharge? Yes. Slump 4 3/4, air 5.8, temperature 84. He made a set. And the RFI? Elaine sent the engineer's written response at 5:12. Caleb had obtained his approval. I hated the small disappointment that went through me. Denise noticed. A compliant replacement placement is a good outcome. I know. Say it like you know. It's a good outcome. Almost convincing. She sent me back to the equipment room. At 10, Jamal returned with concrete on his sleeves and an empty cylinder rack. You're back early, I said. West Block took 31 yards. They released me after the first set. The request said 22. The forms had an appetite. What about the center block? Different placement. Supposedly this afternoon. Are you going back? He shook his head. No new test request. I found Denise in the curing room. They used 9 more yards than the estimate and released him. I heard. Are they testing the center section? If they place it today, their approved plan calls for a set. Who's making it? Voss says they moved the center placement to tomorrow. Did Bellwether confirm that? Her mouth tightened. I'm checking. By lunch, Elaine had paused the remaining work. Caleb had described the first section as a successful demonstration of the revised procedure. Elaine described it as a quantity overrun that consumed concrete allocated to the next section. The structural engineer wanted the as-built joint location before approving another placement. The pump was cleaned again. Another crew went home after half a day. Caleb attached the costs to his complaint. He also submitted a supplemental statement from Leon. In it, Leon acknowledged adding water, but said it occurred after the laboratory hold, while Denise considered whether the load could be adjusted. He did not identify who requested it. He wrote that he could no longer recall whether the handwritten note was made before or after testing. He recalled yesterday, I said. He also had his supervisor in the room when he signed this. Denise said. Did he have his supervisor with him at the site? No. Then ask him again. Northline does not interrogate drivers. It can ask a direct question. It did. This is the answer. She placed Leon's statement in the project file. The QA cabinet now held more documents than some small jobs produced in a month. The producer's batch audit arrived that afternoon. The load had left the plant with the auxiliary water counter at 1250. My photograph showed 1275 at the site. 25 gallons had been added between dispatch and testing. The batch computer also recorded an air-entraining admixture dose below the approved design amount. A feed pump fault alarm had appeared 2 minutes after loading, been cleared by an operator, and never reached the dispatch screen. The producer accepted responsibility for the admixture fault. It did not accept responsibility for the field water because Leon had entered the addition beneath the handwritten heading, Customer Request. No customer name appeared. Caleb replied within 11 minutes. The 25 gallons fell within the mix design's maximum allowable field water, he wrote. The driver had failed to document the authorizing person. Northline had failed to immediately test the load, and no evidence established that the concrete was unacceptable when it first arrived. He stopped saying I wrote the number, I said. He hasn't withdrawn it, Denise answered, but he's building a second door. He's good at doors. I looked at her. You think technical directors don't recognize strategy? I think you admire him. I think people become dangerous when you simplify them. She signed the batch audit and added it to the sealed record. The full site video arrived without the first 4 minutes. The security contractor included a service note showing that the camera had rebooted at 6:38. The available footage began after the bucket hit the ground. Ray Dougherty called Northline near closing time. He refused to give a formal statement. He did tell Denise that Caleb had ordered him to keep the pump charged and the boom over the foundation before testing. When Denise asked if he saw Caleb strike my bucket, Ray said, I saw him reach for it and then I had primer trying to turn into a patio inside a 6-figure machine. Did Ms. Voss interfere with your equipment? Denise asked. No. Did she tell you to stop pumping? She didn't have to. Plant QC came over the radio. Would you be willing to put that in writing? I'd be willing to keep answering when you call. It was less than I wanted and more than Ray could comfortably afford. Voss Industrial supplied half his summer work. Before hanging up, he added, Tell Mara I still say a thermometer is measuring the weather. My first smaller paycheck arrived Friday. I moved 2 bills to the following week and ignored an estimate for my car's transmission that had been sitting on the kitchen counter. Caleb withdrew nothing. At the 7-day break, the first cylinder from the rejected load failed at 2,310 pounds per square inch. The second reached 2,480. For the approved mix, the expected 7-day strength was closer to 3,200. I watched through the safety window while Jamal brushed concrete fragments out of the compression machine. Could be consolidation, he said. It could. Could be curing. The field box log was stable. Could be the universe reminding us that one test age isn't a prophecy. I wrote both results on the worksheet. You rehearse these lines? Only in the shower. He grinned before I could help it. The low brakes did not prove what the 28-day strength would have been. They did prove the load had not improved while Caleb argued about it. Denise sent the report to Bellwether, the producer, and Voss Industrial. Caleb responded that specimens from rejected concrete had no contractual bearing because the batch was never accepted for structural use. Technically, he had a point. Then he questioned whether the cylinders had been made from concrete, sampled after the disputed water addition. Technically, that was exactly why they mattered. Elaine requested a meeting. Before it happened, Dana came to my house carrying a blue ledger sheet folded inside a grocery circular. She stood in the kitchen while I cleared mail from the table. Her white sneakers had acquired a gray smudge along one sole. You look tired, I said. You look underpaid. Accurate. She put the folded paper down but kept 2 fingers on it. Caleb moved admixture costs, she said. From Bellwether? On to Bellwether, some of them. I waited. Rapid set, hydration stabilizer, extra super plasticizer. The invoices are coded to phase 1, but the delivery slips tie them to 3 other jobs. Why? Because those jobs had exhausted their material allowances. Bellwether still had contingency. Who approved the transfers? He did, and you posted them. Her fingers left the paper. I posted summaries. Project managers approve job costs. You knew the numbers didn't fit. I knew he was trying to keep bad months from becoming covenant violations. The refrigerator clicked off. The silence after it felt intentional. How much debt? I asked. Enough that the missed draw matters. Does Elaine know? She knows Voss needs timely payment. She doesn't know how close everything is. And you came here because the admixtures aren't the issue by themselves. They were used. The projects benefited. But every one of those deliveries follows a pour, Caleb advanced, before the approved mix revision was processed. I opened the grocery circular. The ledger page listed dates, purchase orders, job codes, and Dana's reconciliation notes. One line matched a hospital generator pad I had audited before Caleb removed me. Another matched a distribution center trench where he had called my hold administrative weather. This shows a pattern, I said. It shows billing entries. It shows he keeps buying chemical solutions after scheduling over the submittals. It doesn't prove the concrete was bad. I didn't say it did. Her eyes sharpened. You're enjoying this. No, I'm being careful. You sound like him when you say that. I folded the page along its existing crease. Do you have the delivery slips? You can request them. From whom? The supplier. They won't give them to me. Bellwether can request its cost backup. You want Elaine to find the others. I want you to build whatever you're building yourself. You brought me the first beam. I brought you one verified ledger page because he used my department to hide his rush costs. Her voice finally broke its level. That is the part I know. Don't make me responsible for the conclusion you want. I don't want a conclusion, Dana. You always do. No, I want him to stop forcing everyone else to carry the risk after he takes credit for the speed. She looked at me for a long moment. He thinks if the company slows down, Dad dies for real. The cruelty went out of the room. Dad already did, I said. I know. Dana picked up the grocery circular and left me the ledger page. Elaine's meeting took place at Bellwether the following morning. Caleb sat beside Dana this time. Denise and I faced them. The structural engineer joined by video, his voice arriving half a second after his mouth moved. Elaine had the low break report, the batch audit, and the revised placement plan in front of her. Mara's field results stand, Denise said. Our review found no procedural basis to alter them. Caleb rested his hands flat on the table. And the conflict? Should have been disclosed directly to the project team. That is an administrative deficiency, not a testing deficiency. She escalated before testing because access to the load was obstructed. That is her account. Denise slid Ray's call memorandum forward. It is not only hers. Caleb read it. He didn't see the alleged contact. He confirmed she did not interfere with the pump and that you prepared to place before release. Elaine turned to me. What would you need to return without making this site a family tribunal? A second technician for every foundation placement, direct reporting to your materials engineer, written hold and release authority posted with the pour plan, batch tickets before discharge, any field water addition witnessed and retested. Caleb gave a low laugh. 2 technicians to pour 60 yards. 3 placements, congested steel, revised joints, disputed records. You're punishing the project. I'm removing the argument about who saw what. Elaine looked at Denise. Can Northline staff it? Yes. Then Elaine looked at Caleb. Can Voss accept it? He glanced at Dana. She did not nod. She did not look away either. The next draw package requires an accepted foundation report, Elaine said. I'm not submitting another disputed record. Caleb understood the boundary around him. He also understood who had helped build it. "Fine," he said. "Mara can come back." "Northline assigns personnel," Denise said. For the first time that morning, Caleb smiled. "Of course." The next placement was scheduled for 6 that evening, when the concrete temperature would be easier to control. Jamal and I arrived together. The written hold procedure was laminated and zip-tied to the testing table. Ray had painted a red line on the pump hopper above the minimum safe level. Caleb stood inside the reinforcing cage, checking embedded plates. When he saw me, he tapped one plate with his wrench and climbed out. "Dad would hate this," he said. "The paperwork?" "The audience." He walked past me toward the first mixer. I set the stainless stopwatch beside the red grease pencil and clicked it on. The first truck reached the gate at 6:07. I wrote the arrival time across the ticket in red, checked the truck number against the placement request, and read the water counter aloud. 1325. Jamal wrote it on the field sheet. The ticket showed the load batched at 5:51, with the correct air-in-training admixture and high-range reducer. I checked the maximum water allowance, then handed the ticket to Jamal so neither of us controlled the only record. Caleb watched from the pump. "Are we testing concrete or adopting it?" Ray lifted his remote. "Adoption might be faster." The driver discharged enough to clear the chute. We took a composite sample, remixed it with shovels, and divided the work. Jamal ran the air test while I filled the slump cone. The concrete settled 4 3/4 inches. Temperature was 84. Air was 5.7%. I signed the release line. Jamal countersigned it. "Load accepted," I called. Ray brought the boom over the center block. Concrete rolled into the hopper, thick and steady. The pump changed pitch. Then the first gray ribbon dropped between the reinforcing bars. Caleb stepped onto the form platform and became useful. He moved the hose crew away from the embedded plates, corrected one vibrator operator who was dragging through the mix instead of making vertical insertions, and stopped a laborer from using a rake against a sensor conduit. He had spent the previous week turning quality control into a personal attack, but he knew how to place concrete. Watching him work was like finding an old tool sharpened on one edge and rusted on the other. The first load disappeared into the cage more slowly than planned. Congested steel trapped the coarse aggregate, forcing the hose crew to work in narrow passes. Ray adjusted the pump pressure. "Mix is sticky," he said. "It's within design," I answered. I didn't say it was wrong, I said it has emotional problems. The second mixer arrived at 6:26. I marked the ticket, called out the water counter, and clicked the stopwatch. Its tests were almost identical to the first load. 4.5-inch slump, 5.6% air, 83 degrees. I signed the release. Caleb pushed his way around the testing table and looked into the wheelbarrow. "It'll bridge around the anchor frames." "The first load is moving." "Because I have 2 men vibrating a square yard." That's the placement method the engineer approved. He took the ticket from Jamal and scanned the water figures. "Add 15 gallons, he told the driver. It was Leon. For a second, nobody moved. He sat in the cab with one elbow on the open window, looking down at Caleb. "Plant told me no field additions without QC approval," he said. "I'm the customer." Leon's eyes moved toward me, then back. "Yesterday it said customer request. Today I need a name. My name is on the job." "Then put it on the water line." Caleb held out his hand for my red pencil. I closed my fingers around it. "The truck is already tested," I said. "Any addition requires remixing and retesting. The ticket shows 2 gallons remaining under the maximum batch water. Reducer gives us workability. Water gives us movement through the cage. 15 gallons puts it over the approved ratio. It puts 9 yards in the forms before midnight." Leon set the brake. "I can't add it." He refused before I could issue a hold. Ray lowered his remote to his side. The hose crew saw him do it and stepped back from the foundation. The mixer drum kept turning, but the entire placement seemed to go quiet around that sound. Caleb looked from Leon to Ray, then to the laminated procedure tied to our table. "This is what you wanted," he said to me. "Everyone gets to stop." I wanted everyone to know where the stop was. Same result. "No, last time you were the only one allowed to decide." His face changed. For half a breath, he looked less angry than injured. Then he turned toward Jamal. "Call the plant. Have them send someone with reducer." "The producer has to make that decision," Jamal said. "Northline can't adjust their mix. I know who makes the decision." "Then why are you telling him?" I asked. Caleb walked away before the question could become an answer. The batch plant's quality manager was 40 minutes out. Ray kept the first load moving in the forms while Leon's truck waited. By the time the quality manager arrived, reviewed the ticket, and approved an additional reducer dose, the load was approaching its placement time limit. The admixture needed 5 minutes of mixing at charging speed. A hydraulic warning light came on during the 4th minute. The drum slowed. Leon tried twice to bring it back to speed. The warning stayed lit. The producer's quality manager rejected the load. 9 cubic yards left Bellwether without touching the pump. The center block remained half complete. Its advancing face stopped at the emergency joint detailed on the revised drawing. Caleb stood by the gate until the taillights disappeared. Dana came down from the trailer with her laptop under one arm. She had been assembling the draw package while we poured. Gravel dust had turned the toes of her shoes beige. "Who owns that load?" she asked. "The producer," Caleb said. "Mechanical failure." The truck failed after 48 minutes of site standby, because Northline delayed it. "We tested in 11 minutes, Jamal said. Dana looked at me. 11 minutes, I confirmed. Caleb pointed toward the reinforcing cage. "Charge it to quality standby and move on." Dana opened her laptop on the testing table. The light from the screen made her face look pale. "Quality standby is a reimbursable project cost. Bellwether won't accept it without Northline's delay record. Then code it to concrete waste. Producer waste requires their rejection credit. They rejected it. For elapsed time after your requested adjustment. I requested an adjustment allowed by the mix." Mara glanced at the ticket in Jamal's hand. "Not the amount you requested." Dana typed something. Caleb stepped closer. "What are you doing?" "Director discretionary rework. That hits my project performance. It belongs to your decision. You're recording an entire rejected load against my bonus because she made a scene." Dana closed the laptop halfway. She didn't ask for water. "I was trying to place the mix." "You were trying to turn your schedule problem into everybody else's undocumented decision." He stared at her. "She gave you that sentence." "No, you did." Ray became fascinated with a grease fitting on the pump. Jamal carried the testing tools to our truck one at a time, although they would have fit in a single trip. Caleb's voice dropped. "You both understand what happens if this draw slips." Dana's voice stayed level. "Yes, that's why I won't submit another cost I can't support." He looked at me last. There was no triumph in having him cornered beside a half-poured foundation. My field pay would not cover Dana's payroll. A correct ticket would not make 41 employees less dependent on his next decision. He had built the company into a machine that ran fastest when everyone accepted a little of his risk, and now we were asking it to idle without knowing whether it could. "We can stabilize the joint," I said. The engineer detailed it. "Cap the exposed concrete, protect the steel, and place the rest tomorrow with plant QC here from the first truck." Caleb laughed once. "Thank you, Mara." "It's the available option. You always make surrender sound like a procedure, and you make gambling sound like leadership." Dana shut the laptop completely. Caleb walked back to the forms. He checked the emergency joint, ordered the crew to clean latents from the stop face, and called the structural engineer. He did not ask Dana to change the code again. We stayed until after 1 in the morning making cylinders, checking the curing box, and documenting the joint. I wrote the final truck time with the red pencil, clicked off the stopwatch, and found a paper cup of coffee beside my field book. Ray pointed toward Caleb. "He brought a tray," he said. "For everyone? Don't injure yourself looking for poetry in it." The coffee was terrible. I drank it anyway. Plant quality control attended the next evening. The producer reduced the coarse aggregate fraction slightly within the approved mix tolerances and adjusted the high-range reducer at batching. The first truck arrived with a 5-inch slump and moved cleanly through the steel. Halfway through the center block, a hose laborer struck one of the embedded plates with the vibrator shaft. I saw the grease pencil witness mark shift against the form. "Hold the hose!" Ray stopped the pump. Caleb was beside the plate before I reached it. He checked the elevation with a laser and swore under his breath. 3/16 high, he said. Engineer's tolerance is 1/8. I know the tolerance. The concrete was still workable. Caleb had the crew pull the plate back into position with the adjustment nuts while Jamal checked its alignment from the other side. I held the grade rod. Dana, who had come down to observe the cost-sensitive portion of the placement, recorded the interruption without assigning blame before anyone knew the cause. When the plate was set, Caleb looked at my red witness mark. "You put those on all of them?" "Yes." "When?" "Before the first truck." He nodded once. "Do the rear pair again before we bury them." That was the nearest thing to trust he had offered me in months. It sounded exactly like more work. The center block took until midnight. The east block was completed the following night with no rejected loads, no undocumented water, and one argument about a sandwich Ray left on the pump controls. At the final truck, Leon handed me the ticket before I asked. "Counter's 1375, he said. "No field water. You want to write it?" He took my red pencil and printed the number himself. The 28-day cylinders from the accepted placements exceeded design strength. The cylinders from the original rejected load did not. Their average remained low enough that Denise added a technical note stating that the field rejection had prevented concrete of uncertain durability and strength from being incorporated into the compressor foundation. Caleb called the note speculative. The structural engineer called it appropriately qualified. Elaine included it in the accepted foundation report. The lender released the draw. That should have ended it, but records have a way of making new questions once people stop fighting the first one. Dana submitted Bellwether's cost backup without moving the rejected load. Elaine asked why unrelated admixture invoices appeared in Phase 1 contingency. Dana provided the ledger page and the delivery slips she had since collected. The review expanded to Voss Industrial's internal job cost controls. There was no dramatic meeting where Caleb confessed to anything. There were 3 weeks of revised spreadsheets, quiet calls with the company's lender, and a consultant who asked plain questions Caleb could not answer with a schedule recovery chart. The bank required Voss Industrial to hire an operations manager with authority over project controls and quality documentation. Caleb kept his title through Bellwether's completion because removing him mid-project would have created more risk. His approval authority narrowed. Mix changes required written review. Cost transfers required Dana's supporting documents and a second signature. He lasted 4 months under the new structure. The morning he left, he came to Northline while I was loading cylinder molds into a truck. He wore jeans and a clean work shirt instead of a safety vest. "I'm going to a restoration contractor," he said, operations side. Concrete repair, parking structures, garages, things other people poured wrong. That seems healthy. He almost smiled. They have an owner who signs every change order personally. You'll hate that. I already do. He looked into the truck bed. The stainless stopwatch sat on top of my field bag. "Dad offered me that once," he said. "He left it on a dashboard. That wasn't an offer. He said I needed to learn patience." "What did you say?" "I told him patience was what people called delay when they weren't paying for it." "That sounds like you." It sounded like him first. I waited. Caleb rubbed a spot of dried concrete from the edge of a cylinder mold. "You think I took your badge because you challenged the reports. You took it out of my hand in front of the entire safety crew. I took it because every time you found something wrong, Dad was right again." The admission was smaller than an apology and probably cost him more. "You still needed my signature," I said. "Yes." You could have asked. You would have said no. I did say no. He nodded. That was the problem. No, Caleb. That was the answer. He left the concrete flake on the truck bed and walked to his car. Northline restored my field differential and back pay after closing the complaint. Denise promoted me to field quality supervisor before the next summer season. You're already doing the work, she said. Is that your whole speech? There's a salary sheet. Better speech. Jamal objected to reporting to me on the grounds that I had no appreciation for microwave cuisine. Denise overruled him. Dana and I did not repair ourselves over one dinner. We started with coffee near her office, 20 careful minutes at a time. She remained at Voss Industrial under the new operations manager and discovered that a company could survive an honest monthly report. Some months, it even improved. On my final bellwether visit, the compressors were running. Their low mechanical hum traveled through the soles of my boots, steady enough that I had to concentrate to feel it. The vibration readings were within the engineer's limits. The embedded plates had not moved. Elaine met me beside the foundation with the turnover binder. Inside, behind a laminated sleeve, was a copy of the original rejected ticket. Caleb's dusty thumbprint had faded, but my red line still crossed the printed loading time. I set my father's stopwatch on the finished concrete. For a moment, I listened to the compressors settle into their rhythm. Then I clicked it off.